Welcome back. This is Sunday Express, and tonight we're talking about sexual reproduction with a keen interest on matters of trust and how that drives solutions. With me in studio is none other than Dr. Kireki Omanwa, who is an OB and gynecologist at my far left there, as well as Jane Gatia, who is a counseling psychologist. Karibu sana, and thank you very much for making time.
Thank you very much.
And we hit the road at that point. We start with you, Dr. How does trust, or lack of it affects a person's decision, to seek testing and treatment for an STD, so to speak?
I think trust is something which is very important in any structure, whether it is at home, in a relationship, at work, in society in general. So when it comes to sexually transmitted diseases, sexually transmitted infections, these are infections which are transmitted, as the name suggests, by sexual contact. It can be oral sex, it can be anal sex, or it can also be vaginal sex. Now, when a patient comes to us, the first thing that we want to ask, what we want to do is to take a history. What has happened, we take a normal history, and then why have you come to see us? Then, oh, Daktari, I saw something, I saw a growth, I saw a wart, on my vagina, for example, on my, and so on. So we want to look at that. And then we will ask about the sexual history. Mm-hmm. How many partners have you had? Some of them are very candid, and they say, Daktari, I don't know, but I've had many. And others will be very specific because they remember, and they say, in my whole life, I've had maybe 2, I've had 3, or maybe some will say, I've had only 1. Let us also remember that sexually transmitted diseases have serious consequences. And the consequences may be short term, the pain, the fevers that you may have, and so on. Long term, or even short, mid term, they may have issues with inflammation. For example, if it comes to the ladies, they may affect the tubes. They may affect the tubes in men as well. They may lead to infection of the ovaries. They may lead to infection of the testicles, and so on. And then long term, these actually have serious consequences when it comes to when they want to have babies in the future. There is infertility, and unfortunately, ladies are the ones who bear the brunt for that. So it may be that the men in society, and I think this is something which is all over the place, for a man to have multiple relationships and having, several women is deemed as being macho.
But yet the burden, especially the disease burden, falls on the female.
Will fall on the
Now let's look at the
lady.
Psychological aspect of it. The lack of trust, even just the fact that you are seeking medical assistance for this. From a psychological part of view, from a medic, I'm sure you do not you prefer not to treat both partners involved.
We'd rather bring both of them, but they rarely come, both of them.
But they rarely do.
Ladies are the ones who come first.
On their own, psychologically speaking. How is this affected?
Yeah, first of all, the issue of sexually transmitted infection is very sensitive because it has quite a number of dimensions within it. There's the issue of the emotional. What does it cause the person feel? Of course, it can be very traumatizing. It can be very demeaning. Somebody feels like, yeah, it's that other person. The blame game comes in.
They brought it to me.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So the blame game begins there. And that's how now issues of trust is betrayed, or rather are betrayed, because it's like, oh, I trusted him. First of all, for someone to engage in sexual matters, they must have trusted that partner, because human beings will not go everywhere unless they know that person, they have built trust on them. But once they realize they have acquired or they have been infected with a sexually transmitted infection or disease, then the trust is lost. The first thing that is lost is trust.
Now, from a medical, that's a psychological point of view, where now broken trust. But then also the individual choosing to seek medical help.
Correct.
There's a lot of fears and misconceptions, that prevent people from opening up, to healthcare providers about their sexual health. How can we address that?
A very difficult and very sensitive area. I had a patient who came to me and told me, you know, Daktari, I need to see you urgently. I said, okay, I'll see you. When she came, she told me, you know, I'm telling you this in trust. We went to one of the cities from Nairobi with my friends, and we had a good time on the dance floor. We drank, and I saw somebody whom I fancied, and I ended up with him. And in the morning, I woke up and I was wondering, who is this next to me and what is happening? So she came quickly to Nairobi, and the first thing is to call me and say, I need your help. I need you to check whether I'm HIV positive. Of course, HIV positive will not be positive straight away, but that psychological thing of I have to, you know, to safeguard my interests, as it were. And then she went a little bit further. She said, you know, you have to put me on medications because what if?
Yes.
What if?
What if?
What if? And I said, but you see, how are you going to discuss this with your husband? He said, my husband does not come into the picture. I will not tell my husband.
All right.
Yeah.
So now it becomes you and the client, you and your patient.
It's me and my patient. Now, do I call the lady's husband and say, look, this is what your wife did last
What does
week?
ethics say, Doctor?
Yeah. I have an obligation to the patient who has come to me.
To the patient who's
To the
come.
patient who has come to me. The gentleman has not come. So the onus is on this patient to tell the partner that actually this is what happened. Now, bringing in that issue of trust. Now, if she tells the husband that this is what happened, will that trust be there?
That's a good question. From a psychological point of view, when you look at treatment of sexual reproductive health, it's a sensitive topic. Actually, it's even taboo to discuss it. But hey, we're in the 21st century, we have to address this issue. Is there a right way to disclose, you know, those one-night stands, promiscuous, I don't know how to call it, but is there a right way that you can actually disclose this?
Yeah, first, the issue is a very tight one. You know, someone crossed the red tape, so to call it.
Yes.
And they don't know how to explain that they actually went the wrong way because they were not supposed to in the first place.
Yes.
So I wouldn't say that there is any one given way that is correct or not correct. There is no manual in this case. But as Dr. says, it's always very important to encourage the person who comes for treatment, the person seeking help in all issues of counseling. In most cases, there's a second person, that person involved in that particular issue, whatever issue it is. So we encourage that person, we empower them, we show them the advantage of sharing with the other person. Yes, trust has been lost, but it could get worse. What if my partner has also been infected in that confusion? We can salvage ourselves early enough. If I am encouraged to share, I'm empowered. So the important thing here is, what do you stand to lose if you shared this and risk even being kicked out of the relationship? Yeah, it has happened to some people. What do you have to gain if you shared this information with that partner who is likely to be affected the same way like I?
At what point, Dr. do you recommend counseling? Because I hear a lot, there's need for counseling during
I
this.
think the counseling should be right from the beginning. Something has happened, and this patient has these symptoms, and I can see that this obviously is a sexually transmitted infection. And I say, okay, this is what I think. If it needs some biopsy, I can take a biopsy and say, come back after maybe 10 days to 2 weeks. We'll have the results of the biopsy. And once we see what the problem is, then I say, look, I think you need to bring your partner on board. And that sometimes is a challenge. You say, now, which one?
Which partner are we bringing on board?
Because there may have been several. So the best thing is to bring all of them. So now the question is now,
how practical is
how
it?
practical is that? And as I said, you know, right from the beginning, some of these things that we do, one night stand or whatever it is, will have immediate mid-term and long-term consequences. Because later on they come back and say, Daktari, is it because of the things that I've done in the past? My sins are catching up with me. That I did this and I got an infection. And some of the infections are actually asymptomatic. there are no symptoms at all. For example, chlamydia. Chlamydia is an infection, is sexually transmitted infection. It affects men as well as women. The women have no symptoms at all. It is asymptomatic. The only thing is that when they come, they say, we have tried to have a baby for X number of years, and it is not happening. You do all the tests and you find the tubes, for example, are blocked. But then when you put in a scope, a camera in the abdomen, and you see a typical picture of chlamydia infection. There are adhesions, things are stuck there, the tubes are stuck, and so on. For the gentleman, it may scar the tubes where the sperms pass through, leading to infertility, and so on. So I think counseling should come in right from the beginning. If the patient actually assesses the situation and say, once we've given her the information, you say, look, these are the potential consequences in the future. You may have, for example, HPV infection. You may have herpes simplex infection, for example. This means that there can be a challenge down the road. She may end up having cervical cancer, for example. When she is pregnant and she has herpes simplex, it may be a problem for her to deliver vaginally, and even also with HPV infection. So they may seem as little things. They don't have a lot of, effect, but downstream, they are going to have serious implications.
So counseling should be way before we even get to the long term. But then I want to go way before, when two people are coming together. Right now, in this day and time, they're told to even do a thorough medical checkup on genome compatibility and all that stuff, if you're indeed getting into a serious relationship. But what remains silent is the disease factor. How do we discuss if we find ourselves in such a situation? We have premarital counseling and such, but is it an aspect that is factored in? Ngatia?
First, allow me to appreciate Daktari here for acknowledging that counseling is necessary. We are here, we are trained, we don't know how to tell people, please come, it will help you. It could be the savior, in quotes and quotes, for the rest of your probably health. Yes. So there is what we call preventive counseling. Preventive counseling is part of that premarital counseling, where we are trying to find out, before people get married, let them even talk about their sexual history. I am not doing any medical thing or test or, but I want to hear, where have they been? Someone could even have had a child and the partner to be does not know.
Hey, Madam Gatia, let me just did you say that you sit down and discuss our sexual history as part of preventive counseling?
That's part of the premarital counseling.
Wow.
I guess that's why not too many want to look for that, but they may not know how important it is, because that is the beginning of even part of the trust. That yes, I've disclosed to you this early. You didn't know me. You didn't know where I've been. You didn't know that I had another previous relationship. And some people find themselves going back to the very relationship they broke up, and then they go for maybe even a disease that you end up with Daktari here. So it is very important to discuss that aspect, including their sexual life, including, other genetic issues that may have happened in the family. So we discuss a whole range of things, including even the genogram, any diseases in the family, has it happened, and faithfulness, in the family. By the time they are getting married, they have an idea of what is unfaithfulness.
Now comes in the big elephant in the room, the stigma attached,
yes,
to sexual reproductive health. We still cringe when someone asks me or asks you how many, I mean, we do not share that information quite easily. How is it affecting, medical services?
I think that is information which is classified most of the time. Just like when you hear CIA has classified information, it will be open after 50 years when you're not there. Most of these things that we're talking about, it is good theoretically to say, look, when I was in college, my body count was X. Now, the lady who is listening, I say, you had a body count of how many? So why do you want me to trust you now? It's a very touchy and very sensitive issue. And, you know, for example, you say, okay, I had gonorrhea or I had syphilis, but it was treated. So there is that question mark at the back of your mind. He's owning up to having, or she's owning up to having had syphilis or gonorrhea. And what else is she not telling me? Because if she's telling me this, because this is the mild one, so it means there could be some real skeletons which I will not know or which may not want to bring out on the surface.
So then mistrust comes in, and you've said the files, medical files are.
It is
private and
it is private and confidential. Yes. It is medical, you know. Yeah. I cannot disclose that. Now, how do these have implications later on? I really like the idea of having that premarital counseling, talking about this, talking about sexual reproductive health. I would love to go a little bit further and say, look, why don't you also look at the fertility point of view? Yes. Because ideally, when a couple gets together, the aim is to start a family, is to have children. Now, if you had some things in the past, if you had some infections in the past, and you have owned up to them, or you have not owned up to them, we can actually test and see whether there is a possibility that something could have happened, which will hinder our problems in, you know, will hinder our plans in the future. Yeah. Do a sperm test, for example, and you find that the sperm test is 0. Are you still going to marry this man knowing that he does not produce sperm? You do a test and check the tubes, for example, and you find they are blocked. So essentially what we are saying is that this woman may not get pregnant naturally. Are you still willing to go with her the whole hog? And you find that both of you have a challenge. That would be better, because you said, okay, it's balanced. Mimi niko na shida, wewe uko na shida. Tukutane katikati.
Yes, how do we solve this? Yeah.
We sort of, you know, so I think it is a very good idea for us to have this marital counseling. It is a very good idea to do these tests such that we know exactly where we are starting from and what our end point is. Most of the time, couples get married and then they realize, Allah, but why didn't you tell me this? You are getting to know about this. I had a patient, a couple who came to see me some time ago with issues of infertility. They had tried for 3 years to have a baby, and it hadn't happened. So when I'm taking the history, the lady I've taken the history and I've finished, I come to the gentleman, I ask the gentleman, have you ever had any surgeries? And he sort of not very, and then he said, yes, I had a mini surgery. He said, which one? And then the guy sort of is very uncomfortable. And he said, I had a vasectomy. And then the lady asks him, but when was that? And he starts now explaining. You remember that day you took me? I don't remember. No, you remember you are the one who escorted me to the hospital. And then I asked, but you knew all along you had a vasectomy? He said, yes. And, you know. And
you're still trying for a child.
So that trust is not there. Trust. So I think these things should come out right at the beginning. Yes. We know how to help these couples who have issues with infertility. We will help them, whether it is blocked tubes, whether it is lack of sperm, you know, whether it is donated eggs, which we can do.
Medical solutions.
The medical solutions are here.
Has to be part and parcel of that conversation.
Is a very, very important ingredient in this journey right from the beginning.
Good. Now, as we come to a close, we'll set up a subsequent sit down to just look at the issue of childlessness and also look at, you know, the solutions out there medically, as also how that burden falls on within the family setup. Ngati, I'd want to give you a few seconds to just break this conversation. And this is because someone has asked online, how do I tell my partner that I have an STI? I might as well just break up with them. That aspect, as we bring this to a close, stigma-free conversations about sexual health, as we bring this to a close.
Yeah, that's a big dilemma, but we say that the truth will set you free. So it's best to help that person. Yes, you may still want to break up with them, but you have left them with a problem, and you have also gone with a problem. So I'd rather a situation where the two of you sit, discuss, just apologize if you want to. You are sorry about it. Yes, it happened. You cannot reverse it. Then seek treatment, period. And then you can decide how to move forward.
I like the way you concluded, period. It's not so easy. Daktari, last final word.
I think it's not so straightforward.
It's not.
It is absolutely not straightforward for somebody to come and say, I have an STI, I have gonorrhea, I have syphilis. Chlamydia, of course, it doesn't have any symptoms. So the questions will be, where did you get it? Was it the first one? How many have been there? Have I also got it and I also don't know? How do you apologize? How is it going to affect me psychologically and then now physically and then now in the future and so on and so on. I wish life was so black and white like that, but it has so many shades of gray. And that is why I think we need counselors to help us to make that period. We have discussed period imeisha.
Tumesema
imeisha.
Nimekwambia.
Nimesema imenitoka.
Yeah, okay, that is, I think we need to have a nexus between medical as well as just the counseling aspect of it when it comes to matters of sexual reproductive health. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, ma'am, for making time. We have been discussing sexual reproduction, trust-driven solutions. With my panel this evening, it is eminent that for there to be conclusive, even prognosis, diagnosis, and treatment, there has to be trust. The question is, are you ready to pay the price of being honest and accountable? But then the question is, if you found yourself in this situation because of lack of trust, I mean, what do they say about mzigo wa kujitakia mwenyewe? I don't know, I'm not so good in Swahili, but yeah, but there's that. So trust has to be there, and we're going to continue having this series of these conversations on matters of sexual reproductive health, given the statistics that we have so far received in regard to infection rate. Maybe next time we're going to be talking about childlessness. Thank you for making time, getting us online. Those who've been asking those questions, we're going to share the link to this particular conversation and our panel, and you can engage in their personal profiles online and in other communication.